2025.
You know, me, mom.
What a year. It was quite an interesting year when it came to politics. Not as much for entertainment though, especially video games, which is just another sign of a civilization in decline. In this video, however, I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm going to be ranking what I personally played, watched, and listened to this year, from best to worst. A majority of them, especially video games, did release in 2025. I'm a video game YouTuber after all, I guess it's my job to play shitty games. But I will also include a couple of older ones that had just popped on this year. So let's jump right in. Starting with video games, I'll be ranking them from Agartha tier to Israel. Marvel Rivals technically came out last year, December, I think. But most of the playtime, for me at least, was this year. Basically, it invaded the first half of the year for me. It's the game I wasted the most amount of time in this year, and you'd assume I really love it, right? You know how it is. Just like any decent multiplayer game, it starts when it's fresh and everyone is a noob, and you play with your friends, having fun, winning most of the matches, and you eventually hit a brick wall with your skill level, which, yes, I know, skill issue. Going above Diamond in this game, for example, and any other esport game for that matter, requires you to basically no-life it, and it will drive you insane. And yes, dealing with super toxic teammates, that's also a problem. But people don't mention how these people come about. Like, at the end, it's the pursuit of perfection and getting the highest rank autistically that makes you inconsiderate of anything else. So yeah, it's kind of a stare at the abyss and it stares back at you type situation. So as soon as I got worse at it and it started becoming more stale, I dropped it, so around August. I would say in a vacuum, it's an A tier, because it is a good game. But for like the first 100 to 200 hours. After that, it becomes hell. So, B tier. Voices of the Void. Another game that I started playing very late last year, around December. And it coincided with a unique situation that I think made me appreciate the game so much. And yes, it's not technically released yet. It's still on itch.io for early access, which means it's free. And there's no friction for anyone to pick it up and try. Except that it's mind-bogglingly boring for 99% of the time. So this game was sitting on my PC for months. I knew it was good. I knew it got better from like just doing the menial tasks of receiving the signals and processing them and putting them in the drives. But because of my ADHD brain and zero patience, I could never push past that part. But then something unexpected happened. Around the same time, around Christmas last year, my entire neighborhood lost internet for weeks. And in France, nobody works on Christmas till the New Year period, so nobody came to fix it until like January 5th. So I had no YouTube, no guides, no switching tabs all the time, it's just offline games. And out of pure boredom, I finally committed to playing Voices of the Void, and the first blind playthrough with no spoilers, no outside help, it turned out to be one of the most memorable gaming experiences I've ever had. I'm not gonna spoil anything because that's the whole experience, the events and such. So definitely our first Agartha tier, Repo. This was the main friend slop of the year. It's funny, I feel like it's been forever since I played it, but yeah, technically it came out this year. Just goes to show that these kind of games are very forgettable. Not the memories though, of playing with friends and having clippable moments and all those things. You know, it was the same with Lethal Company last year. But judging these friend slop games on their own merit, like if you want to play them solo or with random people, they are definitely not as fun or engaging. I think everyone knows that at this point, so suffice to say, this is a mediocre, if not below mediocre game. I'd say C tier is fair enough. Schedule 1. Now, Schedule 1 is kind of the opposite of Repo, as it was mainly a single player game, but there is a friend slop element to it. You could play with other players. Also, this is a true indie game. It was literally made by one guy. And for what it offers, it's quite entertaining. It definitely was just a flavor of the month type of game, and people forgot about it like after a month. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. There is a place for good enough games, entertaining enough just for the month games, you know. If anything, gaming was better when every game didn't try to like have crazy ambitions in becoming the best of its own genre or something, and like do everything at once. So I like that part about it. I'd say B tier. Abiotic Factor. This is also pretty much like Schedule 1, but it's a survival craft type of game with Half-Life 1 art style and design in general. I think what made it so good for me was that it's not at all a time-wasty type of game like those other survival crafting games. There's an actual progression and quest line to follow, with a friend also, so you can get through it quickly. There's a lot of variety as you go up the levels to escape the facility, which is the main goal of the game, just like in Half-Life 1. And it's quite interesting by the end, so yeah, I'd say give it a try. I'd say this is, if anything, better than Schedule 1 because I played it for quite longer, so I'd say A tier. Slay the Spire. Yeah, I finally played Slay the Spire this year. I never thought I'd be into card games, so this was the first one of this types of games that I played, and it was quite fun actually. It was quite surprising to me. Maybe next year I'll try Balatro. So I'd say A tier. Kingdom Come Deliverance. Not the sequel that came out this year. I played the first game, since I've never played it before, and I've always heard the praise of it. But to tell you the truth, I think it was probably a massive disappointment. And yes, I know, I dropped it like after 6 hours because my brain is fried and I have crippling ADHD, so maybe if I sticked around longer, like in the case of Voices of the Void, if you forced me to play it, maybe I would have a different impression. But what's also true is that from the initial gameplay, I simply didn't like it. I think the sword fighting is not really intuitive at all. And I'm not really a big fan of historical accuracy, like realism in that sense anyways. I like fantasy. I like sci-fi fantasy, I like medieval fantasy, like in Skyrim, like in Elder Scrolls, like in Dark Souls. Like I like them more as creative universes compared to what this game is going for, which I think is medieval history. So like in the menus, you're greeted immediately with like walls of text. Like no Zoomie's gonna read all that, bro. So yeah, this game is not disgusting, it's not poorly made, it's good. It's just simply not my taste. I'd say, for me, it's D tier. Death Stranding, another game that had a sequel this year that prompted me to play the first one. And I do consider myself a fan of Kojima and his work. MGS3 Remake was probably the most anticipated game for me this year. I replayed all of MGS game to date in preparation for that review that I made. And that was probably one of the main reasons that I made this channel for. But I had never played other Kojima franchises, and Death Stranding being the most controversial one, I just didn't know why people hated it. I got the gist that yes, the main idea of just being a delivery driver sounds boring, and Kojima was being very snobby about this game, saying it's a whole new genre, Strand type game. So yeah, I got into it with low expectations, and frankly, after playing it, I would say it exceeded them. And don't get me wrong, I don't think this is Kojima's masterpiece. He likes to delude himself and say that the last game that he makes is always his masterpiece.
今までで最高傑作は何ですか？最近に作ったものが僕の最高傑作なので、この間発売しましたデストランディング2に。
And everyone knows that's BS, and I think he even knows it himself subconsciously. But yeah, this game is really good at first. You get all this esotericism that Kojima is known for. That's basically what I really like about MGS series also, as I explained in my MGS Delta video. So all the ingredients of a good esoteric Kojima story are there, and even gameplay-wise, I think traversing the terrain, when you have just your legs and ladders, and you have to balance yourself and take care of the cargo, it's really engaging for the first couple of hours of the game. But you can already see how the game eventually becomes boring, and honestly, it only gets worse, because by the time you reach the end game, you're not even using your legs anymore. Once you unlock vehicles and start building the highways in the second half of the map, the game just turns into this mind-numbing loop of just going from point A to point B. It basically becomes Euro Truck Simulator. Now, to be fair, that's probably why I stuck with it longer than something like Kingdom Come. I'm autistic, I do play Euro Truck Simulator, so don't ask me why. I can clearly tolerate or even enjoy that whole gameplay loop, but this is where the game really falls off in my opinion. Though things do pick up a bit after in the mountain area when you finally get some new challenges, like after 8 hours. You finally get weapons and an actual threat that isn't just Train or the BTs, you know, the scavengers. They're cool. It's very MGS inspired, especially the grappling gun and the whole Death creates the craters thing. But your options are still pretty limited. And just like in MGS, you're clearly pushed towards a non-lethal playstyle anyways. With trank guns, Kojima's whole never kill people in video games philosophy taken to the extreme. The BTs are interesting at first too. The first few couple encounters, the rain, the whale showing up, it's genuinely tense. But the novelty wears off really fast, and then it just becomes another collection loop where you just deliberately farm them for the resources. And the story, it only gets more esoteric with like the baby. Oh yeah, and the Mads Mikkelsen like random jump backs to World War II and World War I history, half of which I don't really understand. But ironically, those war flashbacks have some of the best gameplay in the entire game. You finally get guns and action and something that feels like an actual video game. But by that time you're already 10 hours in, and the whole thing just ends in like 15 minutes. So yeah. If you like Kojima, you probably won't hate it. You might even really enjoy parts of it, but you will get bored. It's not a game that you replay at all. It's not replayable. And it's definitely not the masterpiece that Kojima seems to think it is. Also, I don't know why you would make a sequel of a game like this. It's really best as being a kind of a one-off artistic project, but Kojima doubled down and made a second one that apparently no one liked this time around. It's more of the same, and it got literally 0 Game Awards, so even Jeff Keighley got Kojima's cock out of his mouth for once. Like, he didn't even bring him up on stage. That basically happens every year in the Game Awards at this point, except in this one. So yeah, I'd say Death Stranding 1, B tier. Expedition 33. Yeah, and speaking of Game Awards, we got Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, if you live in this godforsaken land called La France, you've been hearing about this game like everywhere. And even your most normie friends and almost everyone around you has either played it or at least knows of its existence. So I knew I would be playing this game this year, and I did on launch, and frankly, it's fine, it's a good game. It had a good first impression on me with the story. The characters aren't hideous, and you don't have Diversity Squad. It's basically just normal looking French people, which is surprising coming from Ubisoft employees. Also, the game is actually different from most AAA third-person action game slop that comes out these years. It's a turn-based RPG, kind of like Mario and Luigi, with some quick-time events and parrying, of course. It's 2025, everything has to have a parry. And then, you also have this generic UE5 look of realism clashing with the fantasy art style, which is quite uncanny sometimes. But in spite of all that, I think it's one of the better games that came out this year, next to Silksong. I don't think it deserved the sweep at Game Awards though, like how Silksong was robbed of even the Best Indie Game Award. But I guess it's fine, it's their team's first ever game after all, right? Their indie team of only 30 people. It's bigger than Silksong, of course, and most indie teams for that matter, but I can see it still. So I can't really give them a NES, so I'll notch it down to a... Oh no, what is this music I hear? Okay, let's untangle this. I cannot, in good conscience, put this any higher than the Israel tier, and it's not about the game being bad and like unplayable, no. It's about the astroturfing, the lies, the fact that it's not even an indie game. Expedition 33 being considered an indie game is like the gaming equivalent of trans women in women's sports. So listen, let's start with the Game Awards, which was basically just Expedition 33 awards this year. They won 9 awards out of being nominated in 13, highest in history of Game Awards, previous high being 7 by The Last of Us Part 2 in 2020. You can't make this up. If a game is analog to The Last of Us Part 2 in any way, that's already a massive red flag. That game is probably the most shilled game in human history. Literally the whole world of gaming either outright hated it and was disgusted and betrayed, or if they were normie golems, they would at best consider it to be mediocre or not much better than the first one. But it gets the most Game Awards to date, as if it's not just the best game that came out this year. No, that's not enough. It's one of the best games ever made. Now, obviously, Expedition 33 is not as obscene and vomit-inducing as The Last of Us Part 2, but it's also definitely not, by anyone who has any standard in video games, a masterpiece or one of the best games ever made. Just think about it. Is it better than Elden Ring or Sekiro or Metal Gear Solid 5 for that matter? No, of course not. And all those games didn't win as many Game Awards combined. MGS5 didn't even win the Game of the Year in 2015. And it makes sense, that's normal actually. Video games are very diverse, different genres, different tastes. That's the whole reason you would have multiple categories for the Game Awards. No matter how good a game is, realistically, it's not gonna win all of the awards. Which brings us to the next point, rigging. First of all, this game shouldn't even be categorized as indie. That's the biggest scandal in itself. So let's go down this rabbit hole. Sandfall Studios is created by this guy, Guillaume Broche, a former Ubisoft employee, with an interesting resume to say the least, climbing up to a brand manager in like 3 years. He must be a real genius, right? Except of course not. It all starts to make sense when his dad is Richard Broche, who is a multi-millionaire with 4 investment firms, and one of them being Myrte Invest, gave them $10 million of starting capital for their company. Yes, as it turns out, you can't just set up a game company and try to make an ambitious 3D RPG that would have a 5-year development cycle, and during that time your company would be making 0 money, right? And you have to pay like 30 employees. So you're definitely gonna need a lot of money, and since you're taking so much risk, nobody is gonna invest in you unless of course you're a nepo baby. And if you think that 10 million is already too much, well apparently they got even more money. First of all, they got funding, yes, from the French government, and it's cultural funding. That's why you get all this obscenely French stuff and cultural references in this game. They definitely wanted to make this like a cultural piece, obviously, like Wukong, even though we don't really need that for France. I mean, we've had Assassin's Creed Unity, and just in general, there already is a video game industry in France. You don't need state investment for it to pick up. It's not like France is a third world country who wants to make it into gaming and fix up its image online with all those kind of cultural bait, well, forget about that. But apparently, those things sell nowadays, and governments are willing to pay crazy money to fund them. So yeah, we are looking at closer to $30 million of funding, and then we get to the other scandal, the fact that it wasn't even developed only by 30 people, which already is, by the way, a lot. Again, this game had over 15 people working just on the music. And as it turns out, they outsourced a lot of the work of making the assets and those kind of things to over 300 people in those Indian or Chinese outsourcing companies. So actually, this game was made by over 300 people, which is already like as big as Valve. So is Valve an indie company now? I'm pretty sure there's like 5 people who are holding up Counter-Strike right now. There's probably just one guy who still manages TF2. I love how all these normgroids who got into gaming yesterday love to complain about AAA and how investors and big businessmen have ruined video games, and yet they give all the praise in the world to a game made by multimillionaire trust fund, nepotism hires, and private equity investors. This is a game designed by a committee, because as it turns out, you really can just do what the chart says to make a critically acclaimed game. And of course, with a healthy sprinkle of having enough insider network and connections for them to endlessly shill your game for you. Just like there are Oscar bait movies, a formula can be followed to trick or buy out the dumbest members of any community. And this is why gatekeeping is so important. I don't want any more people to become gamers, honestly. I don't want remakes for modern audiences to experience the older games. Just reading some of the comments on my DS Delta video made me want to commit things I cannot even say on YouTube. And I'm sure there's going to be a grillion more on this video, since this game was shielded to oblivion, and the normies will never understand that they're being manipulated because they are mindless cattle. So in conclusion, bottom of Israel, where it belongs. Silksong. Now let's get to the actual game of the year, you know, the actual indie game made by literally 3 people. A game with real grassroots hype, as it's the sequel to probably the most famous indie game of all time at this point, that its fans have been waiting for it for 6 years to come out. You know, the game that literally broke Steam for hours. You couldn't even buy the game. You couldn't even buy any game. You couldn't even play your own games at some point, because so many people were waiting to play it. You know, that game that didn't even win the Indie Game of the Year.
Please just hear me out, please!
No, apparently French cock tastes so good, Jeff Keighley couldn't take it out of his mouth for 3 straight hours. He even sold out his own butt buddy for it. No wonder no one from Team Cherry showed up to the Game Awards. Jeff Keighley even makes a snarky remark during the show when they gave the one and only award to Silksong, saying like, see, you did win something after all. And I have to say, his face looked really punchable when he said that. And what was it award even for? Best Action Adventure Game, which isn't even a real category. And it was the only one that Expedition wasn't nominated for, dude. You can't make this up. All of this aside, I have to admit, I'm not a pro gamer at all when it comes to Hollow Knight, and I did have skill issues with Silksong also, but that has never been something that discouraged me. A game being hard just gives me more motivation to beat it. And when it comes to Silksong, you also have good art style and music that accompanies you in your journey. That's why Dark Souls is my favorite game ever. And Silksong has the same kind of essence to it. Silksong, absolute Agartha tier. Jeff Keighley will burn in hell for his sins. You know, I've heard Charlie Kirk is playing Silksong in Agartha right now. It came out a week before he died. They didn't even let him beat the game. Coincidence? Why did he have to be silenced? Did he knew the French lobby was gonna rig the Game Awards? Why did I write this? What is wrong with me? Anyways, next. Oblivion Remastered. Oh yeah, 2025 was also another year of shitty remakes for Normdroids. We also got Oblivion Remastered this year, which belongs to this newer category of slop lazy cash grabs where a game is too old for a touch-up and like a simple remaster, and you're not willing to spend the money to make everything from the ground up. So you just outsource it to a third party to wrap it around Unreal Engine and add some AI slop to it, and then the core game engine is still running in the background with all of its bells and whistles and bugs. They already did this with Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered a year ago, and it shouldn't take a genius to understand. This makes the most disgusting type of game that destroys the original art direction of the game, and also it makes it run like shit, because of course, UE5, and doesn't even do the job of making it look modern, because you have all these AI slop upscaled assets, which creates this uncanny and fake look in everything. For Oblivion Remastered, I still played it for one playthrough. It's still the same game underneath, and since I like Elder Scrolls games and Oblivion in particular, I didn't really bother, but this remaster was so lazy that it didn't even deserve my outrage, you know, unlike MGS Delta. So I'll put it in D tier, not even F. It's not even worth being rage baited by it. Speaking of MGS Delta, well, just watch my video. I've said everything that needs to be said at this point. If this game was your first ever MGS, first of all, my condolences, but at least first try MGS 2 and 3, the original ones. And if after that you still think MGS Delta is better or even just fine, well, I have bad news for you. You are clinically retarded. Again, the comments of my MGS Delta video made me lose all my hope in the Goyim. Some people are just meant to be slaves, I guess. Israel tier, of course. MGS Twin Snakes. Oh yeah, as I said, I replayed basically all of MGS series this year in anticipation of MGS Delta, but Twin Snakes was one I had never played before, and I've only heard people clowning on it and saying it's laughably bad, how it ruined the original Metal Gear Solid, because yes, Twin Snakes, if you didn't know, it's the remake of original MGS for PS1. And oh boy, these older gamers, these older millennial gamers had no idea what is about to come. Like, this game is a masterpiece compared to MGS Delta. Sure, it's goofy and doesn't have the original art style. Sure, the new controls make the game a lot easier. Does that sound all familiar? But at least it owns it, it embraces it. And better yet, no one argued that this is a masterpiece, and it's the definitive way to experience Metal Gear Solid 1. It's a product of its time. It's a little cash grab for Nintendo on their new console, which needed a third-party game desperately to compete with PS2. It's just a product of its time, and it's a product of a better time in gaming, frankly. And because of that, I enjoy it in a weird way, despite its flaws, so I'd say B tier. A couple of quickfire ones. Straftat. Actually one of the better friend slops this year, because it's not PvE, it's PvP, and yes, I consider it friend slop because you will play it mostly with friends. It's not as fun on random lobbies. I personally played it the most with my brother. You gotta sweat and get good, as they say, to win. I also like the weird art style, and the gunplay is better than most AAA games, so A tier, honestly. Fragpunk. This game released this year? Oh yeah, I was just reminded of this game going through my Steam library. It's just another forgettable hero shooter. I can't believe this stuff still gets made, but this one was free, so I gave it a try this year. True hell tier, like absolute Israel hell tier. You have to be insane as a dev to still make Concord-like hero shooters like this, am I right? Oh well. Nuclear Nightmare. Another friend slop. Not much to say. C tier. Uma Musume Pretty Derby. This is just gambling. I mean, people got into it for a month and it had like crazy hype. I just don't get these kind of games. Like, if you want to jerk off, just watch porn. D tier. Another Crab's Treasure. Yeah, I saw this one online. They were calling it Crab Souls. It's like a shovelware type game. I played it mostly as a joke, but it wasn't bad. I'd say C tier. Cleaning game. This one was like Stanley Parable, you know, if you know those kind of games. As a one-off experience, it wasn't too bad, but it was quite short and forgettable. C tier. Beltmatic. Oh, an autism game, of course. If you know, like Factorio, those kind of games, it's kind of like that, but for numbers and operations. So your goal is to make a number generation factory. I'd say B tier. Megabunk. This one was a late surprise this year. Basically, it's like Risk of Rain 2, but single player. If you don't know what Risk of Rain is, it's basically a co-op roguelike, which I played a lot with a couple of friends last year. Megabunk has the same gameplay loop, but it's less frustrating, I would say. Also, it's actually an indie game, and it's literally only 500 megabytes, and it's beating AAA remake slots in sales. So I would say definitely at least an A tier. Night Runner's Prologue. Now this one is interesting. It's still a demo, basically. It's not complete enough to call it a game, but the core gameplay loop is there, and I really liked it. I guess it can be considered as a roguelike street racing game. There's this whole shotgun roulette vibe to it, if you know that game. Here you take on these 1v1 races, you set a bet, all or nothing. The driving physics is basic, it's definitely lacking there, but there is a lot of customization for cars. I can see there is a good vision for a different type of racing game for once here. We'll see by the time it gets released. For now, I put it in B tier, I think it's fair enough. NASCAR 2003 Racing Season. This one was surprising. I just stumbled upon it looking for like early 2000s racing games because these modern ones all suck. And this game, it just shows how a small team, Papyrus, over 20 years ago already cracked the code with sim physics. So much so that it's still the gold standard for NASCAR games. It has so many mods, that's what I was surprised by the most. You can basically make it look like a modern game and have new-gen stock cars and everything. It was fun to mess around for a little while. I'll put it in A tier. And that gets us to Gran Turismo 3. Now, being a Zoomy myself, I grew up with Xbox 360 and Xbox One after that, so I wasn't around for many of these Sony exclusive. Hence, being introduced to the Gran Turismo series finally with emulators really opened up my eyes to how much better racing games were back in the day, and where it all went wrong. Like at this point, Forza is dead to me. Horizon 1 was my favorite game ever growing up, so it's sad to see that franchise getting destroyed. First I started with Gran Turismo 2 last year. That's when I got this portable controller thingy for my phone to run emulators on, and GT2 became my most played game on that device. And I played GT3 this year, and now I understand that the Japanese are truly our masters. Like, they got everything right since the beginning. The fact that the creator of the franchise, Kazunori Yamauchi, is known by name, and you know, for a racing game, that's rare. It goes to show how different GT is from anything else. Because racing games are known nowadays to basically just be simulations. And it's the same thing over and over, and they shouldn't even be considered video games. But Kaz made Gran Turismo into a real video game franchise. After all, there is a reason that when looking at best-selling games on the PS2, in top 5 you see we have 2 Gran Turismo games. So let's put it this way, in GT3, the art style, music, progression, and game design, it's all good, and it all fits together as well as it does, for example, in Metal Gear Solid 3. So to me, it's definitely a Gartha tier. No Man's Sky, which won a Game Award this year. I'd say it deserved it. I'd never played it before this year, but I've always heard it was the distant cousin of Fallout 76 when it came out, so I finally played it this year, since I saw a friend was really into it and was playing it. And I have to say, unlike Fallout 76, where people pretend it's good now because it doesn't have bugs anymore, but the core gameplay betrays the whole franchise of Fallout and what it's supposed to be about, here the original premise was always impressive, but the execution failed. But I'd say they kinda nailed it after almost 9 years. It's truly endless. You always stumble upon undiscovered systems, you can name the planets whatever you want, you can actually touch down on any part of any planet at any time, unlike, you know, in Todd Howard's magnum opus. Downsides are that it's kind of a grindy game. And it's been out for 9 years, so you'll see everyone else have better gear and ships than you. Unless, of course, you already have a friend who no-lifed the game before and helps you quote-unquote skip some of the grind and kind of guide you on what are the most important materials, because there's so many. What are the best upgrades to buy, so you wouldn't be just wandering around clueless, because the game is quite open-ended. But for the time I played it, I had fun. It's definitely something you get back to every once in a while and obsess over for like 2 weeks, and then you drop it until the next year when you have the same urge. It's kind of like Minecraft in that way. So I'd say A tier. Silent Hill F. Oh boy, where should I start with this one? Silent Hill, just like MGS, is one of my favorite franchises ever. And I fully planned for this game to be the next game I reviewed on the channel, but as you can see, it's not there. And that's because after playing it, it gave me such an existential crisis about what Silent Hill even is that I had to go back and replay every game and then watch some Japanese horror movies and dissect the actual origins of the franchise, what it's based on, how it's supposed to work, all of it. And it just kept going deeper and deeper until it became way bigger than a critique of just one game. It's complicated, but for now, all you need to know is Silent Hill F is a piece of garbage, and it belongs in hell. I'll explain why, trust me, in about 2 weeks. Just give me 2 more weeks, okay? There will be a 47-minute video explaining exactly why this thing deserves the Israel tier. Okay, so that was it for video games. Now let's move on to shows and movies and stuff. Let's start with Fallout Season 2, just to tie it in with games. Oh boy, now do I even have to explain myself with this one? Like, I only watched the first episode and I already know it belongs to Israel here. In fact, I knew that even before I watched the first episode. If the first season didn't already disgust you with its retcons and total disregard for the original material, and on top of that, all of the subtle and not so subtle political propaganda, you are lost beyond saving. And the second season is that times 100. In fact, it's become so easy for me to read the minds of talentless Hollywood leftists that from the very first scene of the show I could see where the whole plot is going. Because they just take everything that was the current thing of the year and turn it into the core of their political propaganda for Redditor Soys to munch on. Wow, look, the workers hitting a Mr. Handy rising up against automation? It's just like my heckin' AI replacing my favorite transferry porn artist. Rich billionaire guy? Oh, who did we hate on this year? Yeah, Elon Musk. Oh, now I get it. I'm such a smart Redditor. I know media literacy. Fuck these people and everything they stand for, ruining my favorite video game franchise and putting it in front of my eyes. But you know, the political propaganda isn't even the most offensive to me. In fact, there was another scene in this episode that made me lose all hope. And it's a subtle one. It's a little sketch right after Lucy and the ghoul are walking in the desert following the evil white man, following his steps right after he fled to New Vegas at the end of the last season. And they get to a shack where a granny is selling flea soup. If you don't immediately understand what's wrong with this, you are not a Fallout fan. What is this supposed to be? A joke? Is this fucking Borderlands? I know the tone and humor of Fallout has already been destroyed thanks to Fallout 4, but this is stupid in another level. Just imagine walking down the same desert in New Vegas, in the real game. You see geckos that you can hunt, you see banana plants and cacti with fruits. If you've ever played any Fallout game on hardcore, you have to eat those things to survive. In the first tutorial quest of New Vegas, Sonny tells you how to make healing powder from Xander roots you find. And you're telling me in the same wasteland there are people who are eating fleas? That literally doesn't have any nutritional value, by the way. You can't survive on that. It's just a comic relief Borderlands joke that the writers who never played a Fallout game and have no respect for its lore and universe just shoehorned in, because they only care about this show insofar as it's a vehicle for their political propaganda. And you know who sold it out to them? Todd fucking Howard, this dysgenic liar midget. I guess this is our punishment as Chud Fallout fans for not liking his magnum opus, Skyrim in Space. So it has to be right in front of our eyes. You know what, Todd? One day you will pay for your crimes and get anally violated by 2 buff IDF soldiers in an Israeli prison cell. You want to torture Fallout fans so they stop being fans? Okay, Todd, you get what you want. I don't want to play with your toys anymore. I'll move on to Stalker or anything else that's worth my time. Okay, what were we talking about? Yeah, Fallout show. 9th Circle of Hell, where it belongs. Smiling Friends Season 3. It was cool, honestly, I liked it. It's basically like Family Guy but for Zoomers. I also like that it makes leftists seethe on Twitter for some reason. Well, I know why, because the show has soul, unlike them. And that's also why I think it might be on its way to Rick and Morty-ification, I would call it. You know, as the normies will get interested and they start ruining it. So yeah, it's gonna be the last good season of the show. But for now, it is definitely a Garth tier. Sopranos. Yeah, I finally finished it early this year. I started it in 24, you know. And the more shows I watch from this era of like late 90s, early 2000s, and you know, it feels like it's a snapshot of a society, of a world that doesn't exist anymore. It's the same with House, Twin Peaks, that I also finished this year, I'll get into. And like even something like Breaking Bad is really on the edge of things getting worse. Like it's supposed to be set between 2008 and 2010. And yeah, like there's no smartphones in Breaking Bad. You know, people haven't noticed that, but yeah, that's definitely something that, looking back to it, yeah, you notice, yeah, Walt doesn't have a smartphone, yeah, right? So it's really like on the brink of civilization and like society and everything going to shit after social media and all the other poison that destroyed art and all other types of media. So I'd say Sopranos, definitely Agartha tier. Twin Peaks, well, as I just said, same with Sopranos. I finished it like earlier this year, and it's in the name, it's peak, not gonna lie. It's definitely Agartha tier, and David Lynch, the creator of it, died this year, unfortunately. RIP. And then we have Kyle MacLachlan, and again, he's a Chad, you know, the MC. I found out he did some ads for Subaru in the 90s, for Impreza, and first generation WRX, by the way, is objectively the best WRX, and if you disagree with me, you're a soulless golem. But yeah, anyways, what are we talking about? Yeah, Twin Peaks. I love the mysticism. I love the autistic dialogue, like Agent Cooper, like the way he talks and interacts with Twin Peaks residents. It reminds me of Silent Hill, truly. Like, you've heard people say in Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 2, it has bad voice acting and it's uncanny. But like, that's the whole point, dude. It's this kind of Lynchy elements and the uneasy dialogue in Silent Hill that's actually basically inspired from David Lynch's work and also Stephen King, you know? Stephen King, The Mist, which also is another movie that I watched this year. It's also S tier, well, Agartha tier, right? Which I will talk about that movie in detail in the Silent Hill video. Again, 2 more weeks, it's coming, don't worry. Both the book and the movie were an inspiration to Toyama when he was conceiving Silent Hill and what it was going to be about. So yeah, all of this is going to make sense when I make that Silent Hill video. So for now, Twin Peaks, Agartha tier. Next we have Gomorrah. Yeah, this one is a bit weird. The way I started it was like folks on Discord started to watch it, and I was watching along and I got interested, so I kept going even after they dropped it, you know, after a season. And I watched like the first 3 seasons. I didn't finish all of it, but it is interesting. It's basically an Italian show, and it's actually in Italian language, and it's about these mafiosos. So it's Sopranos, but actually in Italy. No, but really no. It's a lot more brutal. And like the mob boss, Don Pietro, like he does have an aura in the first season, but then he goes to jail, and his fat ass son has to take over. But then there's this guy Ciro, who is the like the mob boss guys, you know, who's like Don Pietro's like right hand man, his most trusted mate guy. But he has his own plans for what's gonna happen, which I'm not gonna spoil. It's cool. It's really gory sometimes, which I do like. But it's not perfect though, so I'll put it in A tier. Darwin's Game. Yeah, it's an anime. It's kind of like Alice in Borderland, if you watch that. It's another like Japanese show. It's kind of cool. I watched last year. It was really good. It's basically a battle royale type show, except here it's all run through a phone app, and everyone gets a superpower and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was entertaining enough. I'd say B tier. I mean, it's anime. I have to put it a bit lower. Uma Musume. Oh yeah, this one. I already talked about the game. It's Gacha Slop. But the concept of literal horse girls was kind of interesting to me. So I actually wanted to see what's the anime that they made about it is about, which was supposed to come out for the game's release, but the game got delayed, so we got the anime before the game. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's a bit of a Moe slop, if you know what I mean. And if it's not your kind of thing, it's going to melt your brain. So I'd say C tier is fair. Ugly Mug Epic Fighter. Now this one. How do I go about describing this one? Okay, basically, this one is unhinged. It's like generic isekai. It's like an RPG game they sign up for online, and they make their characters, but there's this one guy that like he's trying to min-max. So he finds an exploit in the part where you give your character debuffs and flaws and stuff like that, and you can get extra points for them. So he basically goes insane, and he describes himself like as hideously ugly and fat, and if he would ever touch a woman, he would die and stuff like that. But in return, now he has like amazing power, and like he never dies. Again, it's like a parody of an anime. It's degenerate as fuck. Aren't them all, after all? It's absolute brain rot. The only thing that would save it from total hell tier is that at least the concept is funny. So yeah, D tier. Chainsaw Man Reze Arc. Yeah, this one actually I watched on the big screen. I went to cinema. Yeah, I know, I touched grass, and it was quite good. Moral of the story: never trust women. They're all demons. But jokes aside, it's more Chainsaw Man, which is always good. The animation and action and gore and everything. First, when I heard the Reze Arc is gonna be a movie, I was kind of skeptical on how it was gonna turn out, but I think it was actually better than if it was a show. The whole spectacle was a lot more condensed to the most interesting and action-y parts. And since it's a movie, I'm pretty sure it was the best movie that came out this year. Definitely Agartha tier. Couple of quickfires, Gran Torino. It's basically just boomer Clint Eastwood throwing slares at Asians. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but at the end, he gets cucked, so I didn't like that. B tier. Munich. Well, this one is, how can I describe it? Israeli propaganda. Tell you what, after seeing this, the recent events, quote-unquote, start to make a lot of sense. The action is good, in general. I like spy movies, and this does the job, but it's a bit too long. I mean, it's just Spielberg being Spielberg, so C tier. The Whale. I do have more to say about this one. Now, as a fellow noticer, I have developed some senses against subversive Hollywood movies, and this movie is made by A24 and directed by all those people from Brooklyn, you know. And I would say there are some subversive things going on here, but at the end, I found it quite based in a weird way. I think the movie has a good shock value to it, as it puts a mirror to people who are destroying themselves with addiction and degeneracy, and Charlie is the natural conclusion of that way of life, Charlie being the MC. And it can actually help them wake up to it and change their lives. I've heard a lot of fat people started losing weight and get their lives together after watching this film. Again though, there's definitely subversive stuff in this movie, as with any Hollywood movie. There's this whole anti-Christianity subplot, which unironically is probably the only way Charlie can fix his life and get out of his moral ditch, yet he refuses to do so. And the whole gay stuff literally doesn't add anything to the plot, it could just not exist. So I personally have developed an immune system to it, so it doesn't bother me much, and I can look past it and enjoy the film. I would say, by the end, it was enjoyable and it had a good plot. I'd say A tier. Mario Bros. Movie. Yeah, it's literally for toddlers. I probably lost some brain cells watching it. It shouldn't exist. Going to hell tier, where it belongs. Finally, we get to music. This is gonna be all over the place. First of all, there's going to be almost no new releases because I'm not that much of a masochist, okay? Modern music sucks ass. But also, I'm not one of those people who has like a specific music taste and only listens to like one type of thing forever. Of course, I have preferences, like I know the relative rank of things that I listen to, but I do like anything from hard rock to metal to neoclassical, all the way to city pop, and some instrumental fusion jazz type things. Also this year for me, it hasn't only been listening but also playing since I picked up the guitar like 3 months before 2025. And this year I got into Rocksmith, which is technically a game made by Ubisoft, and it's basically Guitar Hero with a real guitar. So you just plug it in with the thingy and you just start doing the thingy. And I've noticed my taste kinda evolve based on what I can or dream of being able to play on the guitar. I appreciate a lot more technical stuff, and I've gotten a taste for specifically neoclassical rock, and in particular I found this guy, Yngwie Malmsteen. If you don't know about him, he's the final boss of guitar. Basically, he's there to remind you that you will never be good at the guitar. In fact, you will never be good at anything. He's like the Asian kid at class you don't even think of competing with. So I guess that's how I justify not being consistent in my guitar practice this year. But yeah, he holds the gates of Agartha, so to speak. And basically all of his albums are Agartha tier. I mean, Rising Force, this is definitely his best. Top of Agartha tier. The Trilogy, that's just insane. Odyssey also. Yeah, these are the main 3 albums of him that I really liked. Marty Friedman, Dragon's Kiss, yeah. Now, if you don't know Marty Friedman, and also Jason Becker for that matter, Perpetual Burn, both of these are Agartha tier. And these are also neoclassical players. And they joined together and made a band called Cacophony, from which I also liked the album Speed Metal Symphony a lot. So that would also be Agartha tier. They also have another album called, Go Off. I would say this one would be more A tier because it's less memorable. But they all have good tracks. They're all instrumental, neoclassical rock, amazing stuff. Next on the list, Duran Duran, yeah. They basically memed themselves into my playlist with all the MGS edits with Invisible. Yeah, that's a good single. But that prompted me to go and check out some of their albums. So one of the first albums that I listened to from them was, Rio. It's a good album. I'd say it's definitely top of A tier for now. I also liked Astronaut. Actually, I liked Astronaut a bit more, so I would put this on top. And basically just singular songs out of them, like Hungry Like a Wolf, Save a Prayer, Reach Up for the Sunrise. And I also like this one single from them, which is a James Bond theme, which is really good, View to a Kill. And you know what? This one is S tier. This one is definitely Agartha. Bad Religion, Empire Strikes First. I liked it. I would say it's kind of mid. There's like one good song, which is the name of the album. I'd say it's C tier. But I also listened to their Christmas Songs album, and this one was really cool actually. So I'll put this one in tier. Def Leprosy album. Yeah, Def is really good, and also their covers go really hard, always. You know, if you know Sound of Perseverance, that album too, I listened to last year. Leprosy, I think it's a bit better. I think it's definitely deserving of Agartha tier. Oh yeah, I also listened to a lot of weird and esoteric non-English stuff this year, mainly because I discovered the Fire Rises Hoi 4 mod and its soundtrack on Spotify. No, I haven't played it, by the way. I've not played that mod. I won't touch it because I know it will probably ruin my life. But yeah, there's a ton of good like Russian and Slavic stuff in it. There's one band that I found, Sector Gaza. Yeah, what a name, by the way. I like this one song from it, Tuman. But yeah, I would say the album is actually quite good. I'll put it in tier. Oh yeah, another thing that I found was these esoteric French-Canadian bands, and specifically Rush, which, by the way, I couldn't find anything else from them. I only found this one song, and it's only on YouTube. You can't even find it on Spotify. But I think it deserves at least the A tier. It has good vibes. Wi-Fi Skeleton. Oh yeah, this is the guy who unalived himself this year. I mean, that song, like, Nope, You're Too Late, I Already Died, which is, yeah, ironic. You know, that was everywhere this year. It was memed to death. You know, I like that song, and I liked a couple of other songs that he made. I would say A tier. Grim Reaper. Yeah, this is like a generic metal band that I found out about this year. They had some good songs, but I'd say in general the quality is more average, like around tier. Elvis Presley gospel albums. Yeah, these are gems, definitely. And Christ is King, of course. How Great Thou Art is definitely the best one. I'd put it in Agartha tier. It's definitely deserving of it. And also, His Hand Is Mine. I'd say this one I'll put in A tier. But yeah, and you know what? They work perfectly with a Fallout playthrough. Like, I would put this on my current Fallout New Vegas playthrough. Now, Elvis Presley licensing his songs, you know, they're very hard to get, apparently. So there are none in a Fallout game, even though especially in New Vegas, there are quest names after Elvis songs. There's this whole faction, of course, of Elvis impersonators, the Kings, but there are no songs. So I think that's always something that's been missing from Fallout, and you can add it on and play the music by yourself, so that's good. Jazzy and instrumental stuff, I'd say Cassiope. Yeah, their album is real good. They're basically a fusion jazz band. I love their style, and it's very close to Gran Turismo stuff, which we'll get into. Definitely Agartha tier. Kimiko Kikuchi. Yeah, almost same kind of thing. I would say it's not as impressive and transgressive also, so I'll put this one in B tier. Okay, so specifically let's go to game soundtracks, and starting with Gran Turismo, as I just said, definitely Agartha tier. Gran Turismo 4 soundtrack specifically. Oh yeah, this year I listened to Silent Hill 4 soundtrack, which I have not played the game yet. I will, but the soundtrack is so good. I really like it because I think it's one of the only works of Akira Yamaoka that there are some songs that have lyrics, and the singing is really good actually, especially in Waiting for You and Your Rain. It really makes you think, what if there were more tracks, like from the older games that had singing too? Like, you know, in Silent Hill 3, we also have You're Not Here, which is, by the way, probably my favorite track of all Silent Hill tracks, and it does have singing. But going back to like Silent Hill 2, there's none almost. You know, like imagine how cooler Promise would be if it had some vocals. You know, maybe that's a hot take, I don't know, but that's how I like it. Agartha tier for sure. Silksong. I would say this soundtrack was not as strong as the original Hollow Knight. However, it does have soul, and it still hits the same vibe of the original Hollow Knight. And also, it would be the only album released in 2025 in my list, so yeah, I really liked Bilewater. That was a good track. So I would say this is at least an A tier. Ace Combat Zero soundtrack. This one is really good. I love Ace Combat games too. I haven't played the PS2 games like this one, Ace Combat Zero, that I do believe has the best soundtrack. I will be playing it in 2026. It's in my bucket list, and kinda also in anticipation for Ace Combat 8. So yeah, it's definitely at least an A tier, and that was the last one, I think. Almost every single thing that I played, watched, and listened to this year. And because I avoided the replays of games, for example, as I just said, I replayed every single MGS game, and I would consider it a new experience since I was really trying to critique them and understand what's about them that makes me like them so much. And I found out a lot of things that influenced my review of MGS Delta. Same with rewatches of movies, and also when it comes to music, my Spotify playlist is still mostly familiar songs that I prefer to listen to on repeat. But this year I did tap into new territory that I really liked, and I will take all these experiences and build up on them in 2026 and beyond. I'll also take the opportunity to wish everyone a happy new year, to all my new Moldburgers, I guess. I started this channel less than 6 months ago at this point, and I know I wasn't really active for the most part. I've been dealing with personal responsibilities, but I hope in 2026 I can make more content and also get better at doing so. So thanks for sticking around, and until next time, bye!